Okay. I've actually meant to do this short little translation, oh God, at least 15 years ago. Been translating a lot of stuff. I've published translations of the Dhammapada Pali in ancient Prakrit, and translated various sections of Plotinus, Syrianus, Damasius, Proclus, Numenius. I translated all the works of the Aristotelians and a lot of the really abstruse metaphysical, monistic mechanics and dialectics of early Neoplatonism. This proto-Gnostic text, which we of course can't date, the only surviving text of which is in archaic Latin. And what do I mean by archaic Latin? It's written in a type of monistic metaphysical shorthand. I know you don't know what that means, but metaphysical shorthand is the same fashion which I translate the works of Plotinus. To me, the most intelligent author who ever lived on this planet, period, bar none. Personal bias, maybe so. There have been 4 translations of Plotinus, one of which is incomplete, and that was by the most prolific ancient Greek translator who ever lived, Thomas Taylor. 2 of those translators were perpetually suicidal. And the reason for that is, you know what English shorthand is? Let's say, and this is really the difficulty in explaining things to people. And by the way, Sir Isaac Newton's translations of this Emerald Tablet text are absolutely horrific. A lot of translations, like the Iliad and the Odyssey, are just reinterpretations of existing translations. My translation of this short little text is completely and wholly original. If you actually look, and it's online everywhere, Sir Isaac Newton's translation of this Emerald Tablet text, this ancient text that survives as only extant in the archaic Latin, you'll see that my translation has 80% nothing in common with his. I don't believe in looking at someone else's translation and reinterpreting it. That's not a real translation. I can assure you that if I'm good at only one thing on this earth, it is a prodigy level ability. I know that sounds like bragging, but my professors back in college even told me that. They said you have just a prodigy level ability to translate ancient languages and translate in general. So too the Russians when I lived in Russia. I translate ancient Sanskrit, Romanized Sanskrit. I translate ancient Pali, Romanized Pali. The Chattasangyang Tipitaka, which is in Romanized. I've got the Dhammapada translations, several Greek translations. Anyway, yeah, archaic metaphysical shorthand. If I were to say, little Jack strolled down the street to buy some bread at the local store, you were to take that sentence and you were to write out Jack Stroll Street Bread Store. It would make not much sense, and you stick that in an ancient language, and you stick it also too in things that are abstruse. We're not talking about Jack strolling down the street to buy some bread. I mean, that's kind of understood by anybody who understands objective things as far as objective reality. So not only do you have an ancient language, but you actually have an ancient metaphysical, monistic metaphysics that are written in shorthand. That's the reason why 2 of the 4 Plotinus translators were perpetually suicidal, especially McKenna, is because Plotinus's works are so incredibly convoluted. It is written in a form of shorthand in an ancient language, ancient Greek. And then on top of that, you actually have to have a fundamental hardcore understanding, which is a key. This clavis or key has been spoken of throughout the many centuries as, a mental key of comprehension. In other words, if someone else could even read that text and it wasn't archaic, they would actually have to have the clavis within their mind to be able to read what is going on. And I spent most of my life researching ancient metaphysical texts. I mean, as my works are evident, I've got translations of ancient Greek and ancient Pali, especially my Dhammapada Pali translation, reaching back 15 plus years. So I meant to translate this ancient tiny little text a long time ago, and it's not that big, but it's incredibly thick, and then it is monistic metaphysical shorthand, just like Plotinus's is. And that's it. You have to be able to translate it, and you also have to have an understanding of the monistic mechanics to comprehend what is being said. So you have to translate it on two different levels. First, you have to have the clavis in your brain that's firmly based in metaphysical dialectic, but you also have to have, the ability or the alacrity, just not the ability, but the ease and alacrity to translate that stuff. So that makes texts like this insanely difficult. And Sir Isaac Newton was obviously a mental powerhouse, but he was a mathematician. He was not a metaphysician. Well, he was by many accounts, since most of his writings are philosophical and metaphysical, but that didn't mean he actually had the ability. And his translation is absolutely abysmal and horrible, and my translation represents nothing like it. Anyway, the short little translation is in the link below. I have the short form Latin on the left side, and obviously the English on the other side. So click the link below. I just took a screen grab of it. I thought it would be something novel to look at it in an image, and I went over the translation 4 times. Well, technically I went over the translation 5 times in translating it from the archaic Latin. It's not just Latin. I mean, there are plenty of people that are able to speak and read Latin, but it's in archaic, short-form, monistic metaphysics. I mean, it's like trying to translate the Upadisa Sahasra, the Vechudamuni, or Sri Sankaracharya. I mean, it's like, well, there are a lot of people that read Sanskrit, but you try to read the Upadisa Sahasra, the Vechudamuni, or Sri Sankaracharya, or the works of Plotinus. Like, someone could translate ancient Greek, and they could read the ancient Greek of Plato with some ease, but you can call up anybody that speaks, is able to read, nobody speaks a dead language, able to read the ancient Greek of Plato or Aristotle. They can just sit out there and read it. But you tell them, it's like, can you actually read Plotinus? Like, no. It's like, well, that's ancient Greek too. It's like, you don't understand. So you should call up like the Greek department and talk to somebody that translates ancient Greek, a classics author that's ancient Greek. And there are not many of those left in the world, by the way. I say, yeah, I got to read most of Plato. Like the Parmenides doesn't originally belong to Plato. It belongs to a Pythagorean text. Parmenides and some other texts of Plato's works don't originally belong to Plato. They can read Plato and Aristotle, but you ask them, say, you read like Damasius or Plotinus or Syrianus or Proclus. No, I can't. I could read it, but I can't read it. You actually have to sit there and like chew on each sentence like a gigantic steak. You have to mentally chew on each sentence is like a gigantic steak you got to chew on. And that's why these people that, for example, that translate Plotinus's works, of the 4 translations, 2 of them are perpetually suicidal. it's archaic, dead language, and it's in a short form, and then you actually have to have this metaphysical clavis of a monistic comprehension to understand what these abstruse things are saying. And it sounds really complicated, but it's actually more complicated than I even make it sound. But anyway, enough blabbing from me, blah, 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 blah. I'm really tired. I haven't slept well in quite a few days because my knee still hurts. But anyway, the link is below. I hope you enjoy it. And if you like it, you can drop a buck or 2 or tell me to jump off a cliff, whatever makes you happy. But I thought I'd get to it because a bunch of people said, could you translate the emerald tablets of Hermes? I was like, nah. So enough people finally requested. I was like, it's not that big of a text. It's a tough little nut, but it's not anything that's that tough. Not for me anyway. A big text is always daunting to me, especially like, don't ask me to ever translate Plotinus. Most people don't even know who Plotinus is. I doubt I'm even going to get those requests. Anyway, thanks. Enough blabbing from me, blah, blah, blah. Too much coffee in my system. Bye. And Luxi Veritas.